War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we sit down, we get together, and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the sports here, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We appreciate you just spending a few minutes of your time with us and just hanging out here and what we have to say about stuff in the Auburn family spectrum, but also want to hear about your perspectives as well. And that's what this show is about, and that's what our network is about. I do want to stress something. I want to give you a heads up of what this live stream is about. We are talking about this subject a little ahead of official confirmation from the university or anything like that. I want to go ahead and get out in front of it right now because we live in a gotcha mentality where people like to say, told you so, or this didn't age well, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and head that off at the front. But as it appears right now, Derek Mason appears to be leaving Auburn football. That's being confirmed by a lot of different news sites out there. It's going, everybody's talking about at this point. The reason we're getting out a little bit ahead of it right now is we're about to enter a very crazy news cycle for Auburn basketball and everything else, and gymnastics night that's going on this weekend. And I'm actually got a little bit of news for you guys on that end in just a second here. We'll cover some housekeeping stuff, but that's why we're getting out ahead of it. But we do want to, on this live stream, whether you're watching on the replay and knowing exactly what's happened when it's been officially confirmed or not, the impact of Derek Mason leaving Auburn football, what that means for the team, what's going to happen when it's officially confirmed. Appears like it's going to happen. All of those things wrapped into one. So we're going to kind of have to jump through some verbal gymnastics here to kind of talk around something that hasn't been officially confirmed, but it appears that it is likely going to be there here in a little bit. So as you come into the stream, do me a couple of favors. If you can, make sure you post where you're watching from, city, state, international, all that good stuff with a War Eagle. Most of you have done that already. Smash this like button if you enjoyed this type of content. It does help the stream out, and it helps us grow our little family within the Auburn family. And as we're accustomed to doing here, I want to remind you that later on in the show, we will be talking about our Booster Club. This stream is brought to you by our Booster Club and those Booster Club members, several of them already in the chat. With that being said, let's go ahead and see who's here in the chat so we can get to talking about this news that appears to be growing and breaking and somewhat being confirmed by different news sites out there. Clint's here. Devin's here. Good to see you. Am I going to be doing a Twitter space this weekend? Carrie, hold tight. Put a pin in that thought. Let's get through. I know people want me to get into actually talking about Derek Mason leaving and what that means for the defense and what it's going to look like after that. So I'll give you some housekeeping stuff in a little bit, but let's get into the actual topic. But that's a good thought right there. Good to see you, Linda. Thanks for being here. He can go and stay gone. Interesting way. John, good to see you. Thanks for being here, my friend. Should we let defensive players who signed an NIL, do you mean NLI, National Letter of Intent, the ability to opt out? Bruce, that's a great question. A lot of great questions being formed up here at the top, and we'll see what happens with some of those things, but we can talk about some of the things. Thank you guys for checking in from all over Huntsville, South Carolina, Bruce in PA. Wow. Lots of people from everywhere. The turnstile continues. Devin starts us off. I'm good either way. Never had an opinion on Mason, to be honest. If that's the move he thought was best good for him, I continue to trust Harsin and think we find it's a great way to kind of talk about that, to anticipate this, to discuss this bit of news that I think has taken a few people by shock that it's coming. But also, I think if you read the tea leaves a little bit, this probably wasn't as surprising as you would think it might be. So the news is being reported that Derek Mason was being entertained by Oklahoma State to leave to go over there and be their defensive coordinator. I can tell you right as of this moment, again, if you're watching this on a replay, this is probably old news at this point because he's either accepted it or he's not taking it. As of this moment, I think there's still conversations going on with him in Oklahoma State. If they ever did start, we'll never know that officially, right? Probably no one will ever officially make that statement if it doesn't go through. I'm being told that may have either cooled off a little bit or something else transpired, another opportunity or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's not leaving, though. In fact, most people that I talk to say they are confident that he's leaving. He's done with his time at Auburn and that he wants to go off to do something else. Now, again, things change. Things often are, there's a very fluid situation, especially something that hasn't been officially confirmed. We just want to go ahead and talk about it today since we've got a lot coming out this weekend for Auburn stuff. And that's kind of where we are with things right now. If you noticed also in the news, and I'm going to get back to some of your comments and questions here in just a little bit, some news just have come out about some other coaches that have decided to come be a part of Auburn. Christian Robinson, I believe his name is, former Florida interim defensive coordinator, is coming to be the linebacker coach. Jeff Smetting, who is our defensive line coach currently, well, not defensive line, edge rusher, whatever he would be the linebacker coach. It gets confusing a little bit. He is apparently going to shift into a defensive coordinator role for Harsin. That's what's being reported out there. And also, Brumbaugh, I think is how you say his last name. I can't remember. Yes, Jimmy Brumbaugh may be coming over to be our defensive line coach to replace Eason, because that was one. So a lot of lateral movement going on, but just movement within the defensive side of this team right now. How will it affect the team, the players who'll stay, who'll go? There's a lot going on right now. And that's why I wanted to do this live stream at an unconventional time, because I wanted just to talk through it with some of y'all and see what you are hearing and what you're thinking. I think, though, I've laid the groundwork for what's going on and what looks likely to be happening to be confirmed here in the near future. It's time for Jimmy Brumbaugh to come home to Auburn. It is nice to bring Auburn guys back, right? I love having Auburn men as part of our staff. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it sure is nice when we can do it, right? Carrie says, I'm worried some players that we're recruiting or got by Mason will try to leave. Yes, that's always the fear. Then there's two sides of this coin, right? Yes, you want them to stay at Auburn, but do you also want someone who just came for a coach, or do you want someone that came for Auburn? It's two sides of the coin. You got to talk about both of it. So I'm not necessarily saying one is wrong, but you kind of have to talk about it from both angles there. That's a car going by out there. I thought I heard knocking at my door downstairs. That'd be a little freaky. It's rumored that Schmetting called the defense for the Iron Bowl. So if that's true, I'm not worried. I'll be honest with you, Devin. I've only seen that rumored in some small circles, so I'm really not putting a lot of stock in that. I think Mason called the plays the entire time. I think he just called a great game against Iron Bowl, just because it looked night and day different from what we'd seen the rest of the season. Doesn't mean they couldn't have got it figured out and turned around for the Iron Bowl, and they did. And they put up a pretty decent performance in the bowl game as well. So I think they were heading in the right direction. So I attribute that to Derek Mason. Why does he lateral? A lateral move? Well, if you're not happy at the place that you're at, which might be the case, then lateral moves sometimes make sense. There's rumors out there that he and Harsin have not been seen eye to eye. I cannot confirm those. I can tell you that I'm being told that's what's been going on, but I can't confirm that personally. It kind of makes sense, though, when you see lateral moves like that there's something else at play there, unless it's a really good opportunity. So, like, for instance, use this as an example. Gene Chizik left us after the 2004 undefeated season to go be the defensive coordinator and associate head coach, I believe his full title was, at Texas, and then was named at the time coach in waiting before he decided to go off and be the Iowa State head coach. So yes, it was a lateral move, but there was a promotion in it. There was a thing in that. So I don't know that if the Oklahoma State thing comes to fruition, then, there could be something else we don't know at play here. I don't know, but it seems to me like an unhappiness factor is starting to kind of go in with that. Doug brings up a great point. The majority of fans wanted Mason gone during the season anyway. Now, so the same people are acting like Harsin's at fault. Our fan base is a little over emotional teenager when they are not happy. listen, I try my best to stress this here on this channel, and it's not. Some of y'all take it as a holier than thou thing sometimes. Just chill out. But you have to, it's okay to have those emotions in the moment. Everybody's got emotions, right? But then you got to stop back and look at the context of the situation. It's not as bad as it seems. It's not as bad as some outlets want you to think it is. I think it's Barrett Saleh, said, means bad things are happening at Auburn. I think he was implying there, if Oklahoma State's able to steal a coach away, I don't necessarily think this is a case of Oklahoma State trying or being able to steal a coach from us. I think this was a coach not being happy with the situation and wanting to go off and do something else. And that was somebody who showed interest. Let's see here. I remember when Texas used to pick off our DCs, Chiswick and Muschamp, and both were coaches in waiting. You see how that worked out. They didn't want to wait. Let's see here. I'm trying to scroll down here. I know I'm a little behind in some of your chat stuff here. CR, meaning Robinson, was as the Florida linebacker coach for a while. Yes. And then he got to be interim coordinator. So there is, that's kind of one of those things when you lose somebody, what are you getting instead of them? Is that a good thing? Is that going to be something that factors into this, that makes this a overall better situation for all parties? If Derek's not happy, if he think he can do better somewhere else, then that's obviously what you would hope he would do for himself and his family and his career. But also at the same time, you want to try to find the good. And look, I know some of y'all say sunshine pumper, sunshine, the good in this situation. Harsin, if he does promote Jeff Schmedding, if that is what happens here, that's his guy. Came with him from Boise State. The buck entirely stops with him now, with him bringing in Austin Davis, assumingly calling him plays this year, with now having his guy on the defensive coordinator. This isn't like the staff he tried to piece together. This is his team, or at least staff-wise. Still got some players from the past regime that are kind of cycling in and out. It's all on him now. So now you'll really know when you start seeing a trajectory of wins or losses, whose fault it really was, or whose fault it was in terms of winning. Not fault, it's not a good way of saying that. Who to credit. So you'll really know that there. Rob asked the big question, so who do you like as Auburn's DC? As I've kind of already addressed, Rob, I think at this point in the season and this point in the recruiting cycle, you just need to piece the team together. And that's not to say that Jeff is not a good option. I would probably at this point prefer Jeff Schmedding over anything else. I know people are joking about Gene Chiswick, Gene Chiswick, yes, but since he took the DC job in North Carolina, people are joking about is Kevin Steele available? I don't want to open that up again. By the way, with all this happening, I'm looking forward to the memes tomorrow. I really am, because it's going to be so good with this being factored into that. Would be a great opportunity for T-Rob to come back. Probably. I don't know that you're going to see that happen, though. Alabama's not going to let go of him, unfortunately, which is going to be very, very sad. And put his 3-4 defense in the U-Haul as well. Again, allegedly, as of this moment, the university, the staff has not been officially confirmed, but all signs seem to be pointing that direction, which is why we're talking about that now. I will be honest with you, Rob. You've heard me say this here. I do not like the 3-4 defense. That doesn't mean it's not a good defense and we couldn't be successful with it. That is just personal preference. So in terms of me being disappointed that we might change that now, I'm not disappointed in that. I am disappointed that we're losing an Auburn Tiger and an Auburn family member in Derek Mason. But the 3-4 defense, if it does change, the problem you have to ask yourself is this is now a roster that has gone through not only a regime change, but has completely flipped the script in what it was trying to do as a defensive scheme from what the players that were brought here were recruited for. Are you really going to truly flip it all back again to something else? Probably not. You're probably going to find that middle ground somewhere and really try to mold what you are already doing into something that all parties involved that can be successful for. And then the question also remains what players leave too, because that's going to factor into that as well. Is it just me, or is now a good time to lose my mind? No, it is never a good time to lose your mind, Steve. You should never lose your mind over Auburn sports. If you're losing your mind, you haven't been conditioned enough to be an Auburn fan, because that's just the nature of what we go through. Let's see here. We were ranked 20th nationally in total defense, FYI, Scotty says. So there you go. In terms of total defense, it probably is a loss on our end to not have him here. Problem is most of those other defenses that are ranked ahead of us are SEC teams. So we were probably pretty far back in there. Someone can, talk about that if they'd like to. Devin, I honestly think Harsin is going in a good direction. Only time will tell, of course, but I'm staying positive. And I think that's what you should do. And so there's this part of this conversation whenever we go through a coach loss, a player loss, regime change, that you kind of have to counterbalance, right? You can't be too sunshine pumping, but you also can't be too, the sky is falling. You have to find somewhere in the middle of this because that's where it usually remains. So I guess in just trying to, been talking a lot here, get my overall thoughts on this defensive coordinator news is that I would rather have someone who wants to be here, who's happy here, be part of this team, because what this team needs is stability. And yeah, you got head coach stability, but you don't have offensive or defensive coordinator. What you're doing now is, if Jeff Schmedding becomes the defensive coordinator, my guess is he's going to remain there for quite some time, outside of the defense just becoming outstanding and him getting offers to go other places. Same thing with Austin Davis. But I see a place where if there's a good enough positive trajectory on the offense and defensive side of the ball this next season, people are going to be pretty okay riding with them and Harsin for a little while. So to me, this is kind of, it's not a restart or anything like that, but it is kind of like, all right, we got the ball rolling with this new regime. Now we really need to start solidifying things. And I think that's a good place to do that. Do you think that any linebacker will replace the Kobe McLean's production? Good linebacker could read the plays and make the tackles. Owen Papo, done, said, over with. Our lot in life is to suffer for the most part. Listen, I will not disagree with you a ton on that. It does seem like we have to suffer, but boy, those highs, they are so good when they get there. And that's almost what makes them sweeter. And I'm talking about in every aspect. Think about the low that you had with Auburn basketball. And look what's happening tomorrow. The eyes of the nation are upon Auburn basketball taking on Kentucky. People are camping out in tents as I speak. What a time to be an Auburn basketball fan. And that time will come again for Auburn football, to kind of tie it back into what we're talking about here. Do I like Jeff? Carrie, I kind of answered that already. It's not that I do or don't like Jeff Schmedding as the option. I just think it probably makes the most sense for the team, for the program in the time that we're at. And I will see how it goes and make my judgments then about whether it was a good or a bad thing. So let me answer some more questions. What I would like to answer is, was Derek Mason a good hire? Now that we can kind of retrospectively look at it, hopefully as this becomes official. But let's see here. That's just what I want at this point. I want the program to achieve some level of stability. Well, Brandon, you had that, but we decided that wasn't good enough. So not trying to open that can of worms up tonight, but we had that and it wasn't good enough. So there you go. I'll just leave it at that at this point. The new linebackers coach has an outstanding recruiting reputation. That is a great thing, right? We definitely need to keep building that. You need somebody to come in that can kind of get some of these guys that are maybe a little bit unhappy that Mason's leaving or being asked to leave, or whatever way you want to, whatever rumor you subscribe to. You need somebody in that can kind of rally the troops, so to speak. Not a big basketball fan, but you might watch tomorrow. You should. It's going to be a big day. It's going to be a big day. Again, I'm going to do some housekeeping stuff here in just a little bit to tell you what I've got going on over the next 24 hours, and we'll go from there. I get your point. I just miss it is all. Hey, trust me, I am a humongous fan of stability, which is why I said we should never be in this situation. But I digress. That's not you. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. All right. So here's what I want us to talk about mainly. Try to take a a holistic look to Derek Mason. Remember when he was hired, that was like the best hire that Coach Harsin could make at the time. In fact, so many people were saying if he hires anybody less than Derek Mason, it's a mistake. You flip that after the first couple of games, first few games, really, not a couple. And it looks like the defense is not as strong as we thought it was going to be overall, has great athletes and talent, but it wasn't coming together like it should have been. I think the biggest exposure for that was Mississippi State. That was at that game. That was Mitchell. So was that a mistake? Was that was the hire a bad thing? I would say no. I think at the time, I think he was probably the sexiest hire, for lack of a better term. I think he was the hire that you probably should have made if there was mutual interest, and obviously there was. But I do think that also that Derek Mason, his scheme and what he wanted to do here at Auburn, at least in terms of Auburn fans' patience level, wasn't going to work for the amount of time they wanted it to work in. Given enough time, given enough resources, it would have been just fine. So I don't think that it was a bad hire, but I also was not on the hype train that everybody else was, that this is the best thing ever. This is the best hire ever. Because I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was a situation we needed to even be in at that time. That's kind of where my perspective was. But here we are. And so now we're without offensive coordinator, without a defensive coordinator. Well, now we have an offensive coordinator, but we're going through this cycle again. The good thing is there seems to be a plan in place, whereas a lot of the times there was like, all right, who's going to be the next guy? It seems like a lot of this makes sense. Just look at the trajectory of things that happen. Nick Eason leaves. They find a guy about the time that this all happens that's going to be defensive lineman coach. You hire Christian Robinson out of the blue when you already have a supposed linebacker coach, and then Schmetting is apparently going to be able to move up, opening that fill. So it all makes sense. That's why I felt comfortable jumping on this news and talking about it a little bit early for some scheduling reasons. That's really what kind of looks like it's going to be happening. The best part about last season, we don't have to listen to Alabama fans bragging about championships, but remember, John, I live in Georgia. I have to listen to Georgia fans. It's not that good. Forgot to add, Auburn was ranked 5th in total defense. You said 20th a second ago, so which one is it? I'm a little bit confused on that. Is that 5th in the SEC? Is that what you were saying? Do you think that Kevin Steele is better than the Mason defense? Well, that's a hard question to answer, but I'll try to, Carrie. So Derek Mason hasn't been just solely a defensive coordinator for until this year at Auburn. For 6 years, I think he was, or maybe 5 years, he was at Vanderbilt. And while he's a defensive minded guy, you'd think you can't really count Vanderbilt against him. It's Vanderbilt. Very few people are successful there. Franklin was one of the few ones. So with all that in mind, you have to remember that you got to be fair with your assessment of him. And do I think he's better? Kevin Steele has a pretty good track record of being a good defensive coordinator, putting great athletes and great teams out there. I in some instances, when the last part of the Malzahn era, that the offense was having trouble being consistent, at least it had some consistency. The teams that the defense was the thing that kept the team in there. So that, I would say, just kind of trying some way to find a way to talk about that, to make that comparison. I think it's easy to say that Steele was the better DC, but we only had 1 year and one transition period for Mason to really make that distinction. Mason was a name, and now we're going for substance. I disagree that he's not substance, but I get your point, Larry, and I don't disagree with it wholly. I think that it was more of the splash hire, and was it the right one? We'll never know, right? Because I think they were probably heading in the right direction. But we'll never know at this point. Rita says, without a doubt, that Steele is better than Mason. And Scotty's just clarified. So we were 20th nationally, 5th in the SEC. Not bad. Not something to write home about, but not bad, right? Was, I think, probably a good enough foundation to work from at that. All right, let me do this. I'm going to take a short little intermission here to give you a little bit of housekeeping news and a little, what our stream is brought to you by. But also, after that, we'll get back into your comments and questions, and we'll discuss this a little bit more as we kind of figure all of this stuff out. So, housekeeping stuff. Again, if you're following us on Facebook, our Facebook page is down right now. I'm sorry for that. We're working through that with Facebook. There's a misunderstanding. We're trying to get things fixed there. Second bit, I am heading to Auburn. I know I said I wasn't. I am literally getting off this stream. I got some other things I got to take care of the house. I'm heading to Auburn. I'm not going to the basketball game, but I am going to the gymnastics meet tonight, but I will be on campus. So follow along on social media if you can. Don't miss out. I'm going to be sharing pictures, videos, all that, everything that the Wi-Fi can handle there. I'm going to be putting out for you guys. I've heard that the place is rocking, so don't miss out on that. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to be heading there for this. And I might even be there Sunday for the unveiling of Joe Champy's banner at the women's basketball game. So lots to pay attention to this weekend from us. Be subscribed, notification bell. And we're going to be doing a post-game show at some point on Saturday. So just stay tuned. A lot of content coming out from you across all of our stuff. Main thing I want to remind you of is if you haven't, check out links in the description. One of the things that we want to remind you about is our E2C Network Booster Club, patreon.com/E2C Network. Over there, you can sign up and be part of different tiers, get different perks. You've seen a lot of the people here that we call out and give shout outs that are part of the Booster Club. It's a way to help support it. We are primarily viewer, listener, follower funded in what we do. And you guys keep the lights on here, allow me to buy better equipment. You guys rock. So thank you so much for that. So consider checking that out if you haven't. That's my little housekeeping information there for you in the show. All right, let's get back to the discussion at hand and talk a little bit about this. I had a feeling Mason was going to be one and done. Well, a lot of people thought that Mason would be one and done simply because he was a big name in college football and might get another head coaching job somewhere. I think he probably would have wanted that. I've also been told that he's got a lot of NFL aspirations, and so you might see him go and take a positional coach position somewhere in NFL and try it there. We'll see. Kyle, do you like Trevon Reed? I do like Trevon Reed. I think he's a great recruiter. So if you guys want to find silver linings, sunshine pump, all of this stuff, you can maybe say this opens up an avenue to make him an official assistant coach now. I don't know that. We'll find out. Zach Etheridge is still there. He was doing safeties. Does he get his role rolled into cornerbacks as well, or does Trevon Reed get made a cornerback coach? I'd be fine with that. I do not live in Auburn. I do not. Hopefully one day soon, though. Who's the special guest that is supposed to show up? For what? Who's the special guest for what? For this show or for something else? I'm confused on that one. Let's see here. All right. So I think I've said a lot of the same things over and over again, but I don't think that this is a super bad thing. But I also think it is come with it some fallout that's really going to happen. We kind of know what's going to happen with the coaches, who's going to fill into what roles, but there's still going to be a little bit of the question marks. I think the biggest ones we're all wondering about is what players will be affected by this, because Auburn's been pulling in some great defensive players. The question that was asked earlier, will we release them from their national letter of intents, their NLIs, not their NILs? That is confusing. Whoever came up with NIL, y'all made it so confusing. But yes. So I think that's a question between Auburn and the players that they have to address. It's not unprecedented for that to happen, but I bet you will see Auburn's coaches that are staying and Harsin go all out in convincing these guys to stay there. For the basketball fans camping out, I do not know. I didn't know there was going to be a special guest. I would imagine it's going to be Charles Barkley. I'm just spitballing. So that's making me now even more frustrated that I haven't left yet to go find out who that is, to be there when it happens. But I will say this, that I have hopes to share with you guys something, whether it's a picture, a video, a live stream. I don't know yet, from the tent city that is opening up outside of campus. I will, like I said, I'll be at the arena tonight. Don't know what that's going to take the shape of, but just stay tuned. That's all I can tell you. I would make sense if it was going to be Bruce Pearl, but I bet it's going to be somebody in addition to that. Have I ever met Charles Barkley in person? No. I've walked by him. He's a beast of a man, but I've never met him in person. I'd love to someday. Love to interview him someday, but we'll get there at some point. So, will players be released from their national letter of intent? We'll find out. That's really between the coaches and them. I don't have any rumors or anything like that to address or talk about that I think are legitimate at this point. What we really need to worry about is getting the confirmation that Mason is leaving, even though that seems basically all but done at this point. The official, if Schmedding is going to be moving into that defensive coordinator role, sliding in the guys who have already been hired, and what will happen with defensive backs. For me, that's the most intriguing part about this. It seems everything else makes sense. The defensive back situation, I know Zach Etheridge was a big fan of Derek Mason. I feel like he's probably unhappy with this decision, whatever way you choose to look at it. Will he leave? I hope not. Got to have those Auburn guys here. Zach is someone that could really, be given more of a role, I feel like, because of his ties to Auburn. And maybe in terms of an assistant defensive coordinator, usually that's just an title only, maybe a few other extra responsibilities, especially if Schmedding moves into the role. Will Trevon Reed or somebody else take over cornerbacks? A lot of big questions on that front. That's what interests me out of the news here. We could wind up getting better players by letting any disappointed players flee. Well, you're assuming that the players that might leave are not better. We'll find out, right? I wish I had a lot more answers for this news that's breaking, and a lot more definitive stuff, but really we're just kind of talking through it at some point. Charles is the best. I've seen him sign autographs for an hour at bars on 280, and as a former bartender, he always treats folks so well. I think one of the best things about Charles is he's really embraced his ambassador role for Auburn and has really taken a hold of that. And I think it's been one of the more good things to watch in the latter part of his life and career. And I'm not to say that he's gone or he's leaving us anytime soon. I think you get what I'm saying. Twan Love says, I think Auburn will take a step back in football. So that means you think we will probably not make a bowl and have more losses than wins again. I could see where you'd see that, but I don't think that's the case. We're going to have a lot of conversations about that coming up in the future. Is my full-time job being a sports podcaster? Yes and no. My full-time job is being a content creator. I do this, our podcast network. I have other volunteers who help with this a little bit, but yes, this in short answer, yes, but it's not just podcasting. He was at the Auburn UGA game. He will be here for this game. You can take that to the bank. The level of this game is just getting crazy at this point. I'm just so excited about what's going on there. All right, so I don't want to get too far into the basketball stuff, but I did want to hop on here and see that. Let's kind of start rounding out our conversation this way about the Auburn defensive coordinator. In your opinion, who should be the next defensive coordinator for Auburn? You probably already know this answer if you're watching way off in the future for the replay. But if you had to pick one name, are you happy if it's Schmedding? Would you like to see another Auburn defensive coach move into that role? Is there someone else that you'd like to see come back? I know the easy answer is whoever Harsin wants. I get it. I agree. But let's just go with me here. Who would you like to see move into that role with the context of where the team is at right now understanding what's been going on, what the team needs stability. What would you do if you're Coach Harsin? Who would you pick? Jeff says, I'm happy with Jeff. He's Harsin's guy. Let's see. Theodore, I'm tired of going through this. Our coaching staff is always changing. Well, Theodore, that's what you get when you make a choice like we did 2 years ago. Y'all keep begging me to say it, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to get myself in trouble tonight because I know I get the people that get mad at someone for having the audacity to say something positive about a former coach or a former player is just outstanding. Yeah, it's egging me on tonight. Oh, you're a Gamecocks fan. Do you see us taking a step? Well, I don't really want to talk much about the Gamecocks, but it's hard. Not no offense, but it's hard to really see y'all doing a lot good. I think you got a decent coach in Shane Beamer. That's about it. Todd Grantham has for schemes, but not on third down play calling. Well, then I think that's probably not a good choice at this point. I will always trust in the coaching staff. I think Harsin makes the right decisions. And if Harsin makes Jeff the DC, he's Harsin's guy. It's a great way to think about that. We could be UCF fans. We could, but I love being an orange and blue through and through fan. No coach, no player will ever make me change that, no matter how much I love them or dislike them. It is simply a case of, was all this worth it? We won't know. I'm not ready to make that statement yet, but sure isn't fun at this moment. So yes, you will have to deal with some more turmoil, some more foundation laying. The word for this fan base has to be, and will continue to be for the foreseeable future, patience. This is what we, not some of us, not all of us, wanted, was a change, something new, something different, and this is what comes with it. Attrition, coaches leaving and going, trying to figure out who actually is a fit, players leaving, schemes changing. It's all, and I'm about to say this, I'm going to throw up on my mouth. It's all part of the process. I can't believe I just said that. Nick Saban's just cackling knowing he made me say that. Anyway, so that's just kind of how I would try to get us to an end part of this conversation here. Lisa, we don't know that for a fact. That's all rumors and hearsay. It depends on who you talk to, who knows somebody who, it's really just water under the bridge at this point. Trust Harsin. Yeah, I think it's a good way to look at it right now is just trust the process. Trust that coach is making the right choice. He did, apparently, with firing Cornelius Williams, and I was not a fan of the fire at the time, but I can't argue with what was being put on the field and some slight improvements at the position after that point, but we'll see. So, yeah, appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. Again, all right, we'll start kind of wrapping up here. Last minute comments and questions. Get them in fast here. Again, reminder, I'm heading to Auburn very soon here. I'll be on campus tonight for gymnastics. Checking out Suni Lee, Darian Goborn, Drew Watson, and all the other ladies there. I'm excited for that. I'll be checking out Tent City tonight outside of the students sleeping out in the freezing temps tonight. And as well as probably do something in the morning. We'll do a live game reaction show after the game tomorrow. And then we'll see what else we get into this weekend. I'm excited, even though this news is not the best in the world, as we kind of get some confirmation and everything, but I appreciate you guys being here and being part of this little family within the Auburn family. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I do like Suni Lee. I think we all like Suni Lee. We do really much. All right. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for tuning into this short impromptu live stream. We'll be back again soon. Be subscribed, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Until I talk to you again,